Hello, my name is Haley, and today I am going to talk about the Terracotta Warriors. What are they and why were they made? The site of the Terracotta Warriors was found accidentally in 1974, but it quickly became an iconic landmark of ancient Chinese history. It was discovered by farmers digging around the area, only trying to find a well site, but they stumbled upon a massive burial ground of terracotta sculptures. The site is separate from the tomb of the first emperor of China for whom the soldiers were constructed. The tomb's mound location was already known nearby, but this discovery was a complete mystery. The site is separated in rooms that archaeologists call pits. The pits were originally constructed with large wooden beams along the walls and the ceiling, which was also made of wood. The pits have been excavated though today and are now open. What are the warriors? These are thousands of life-size clay soldiers that were buried, each individually sculpted. Besides infantrymen, there are other figures such as archers, horses, and large wooden chariots found throughout. Each warrior also has a unique and incredibly detailed look. Their faces are different from one another, as well as their hairstyles and even some of their uniforms. They are an accurate representation of what the soldiers would have looked like at the time. Here you can just see the vastness of the site and how many there are. And in this image, you can kind of see the details a bit closer and how unique each one is from one another. So how are they made? The legs and body were crafted separately from the faces. The legs were molded into a cylindrical shape, and they are much bulkier than the rest of the statue in order to support it. Most of the legs were covered by the tunics anyway. The bodies and tunics would have been made by either coiling or slab building. Coiling is a ceramics technique where small round coils are stacked on top of each other. Each coil is smoothed after it is placed to blend into the lower part of the sculpture, and this eventually forms a 3D shape. Slab building is another technique where the clay is flattened into large slabs, cut out into shapes, and then molded into a 3D shape. To add detail to the armor, they used molds or added more clay to hand sculpt. The arms, heads, and hands were made distinctly from molds. Then, after molded, the clay would get attached using clay slip. There were not many unique molds to form the faces, so details were added after construction. Some details included fine lines to show age and different eyebrow shapes to show unique expressions from the soldiers. Once fully constructed, the statues would have been painted bright colors, and there are still traces of paint left behind. Here you can see the detail that went onto the armor. Here you can see one of their face molds, and then this soldier in particular has extra detail on his face with some fine lines to show age on this statue. Who were these made for and why? Before these statues were built, there was a warring period throughout China. Multiple states battled for full control of the empire, and in 221 BC, the state of Qin won. The king named himself Qin Shi Huang, or the first Qin emperor. He was a ruthless ruler who also became obsessed with the idea of immortality and did everything he could to achieve it. It had been Chinese tradition for years to bury the dead with sculptures or important objects to take to the afterlife, but nothing had ever been done to the scale that Qin Shi Huang would order. The terracotta military was created to guard him and his tomb in the afterlife. Other sculpted figures were also included in the burial grounds, like acrobats and musicians, to offer entertainment in the afterlife. And this is Emperor Qin Shi Huang. So, what was the inspiration behind these statues? A mystery that surrounds the warriors is why they were made in this style. Sculpture as a practice was scarce in China in the centuries leading up to this time period, and humans were rarely depicted. It did become more popular in the 4th century BC to be buried with human figures, but they were always smaller, more conceptual, and almost uncomparable to the terracotta warriors. So why did Chen Shi Huang have them created life-size and realistic? Author Lucas Nickel researched the time period to look for cultural connections between the state of Qin and other parts of Eurasia, because it is clear that the warriors could not have been inspired by local art alone. Nickel argues that the Hellenistic states in Asia were the source of inspiration. During this time period, it was easier for China to interact with European culture due to Alexander the Great and his conquests. Alexander conquered Persia and further east and wanted to merge Greek culture with Asian culture in his empire. Even if the Hellenistic states never interacted directly with the Chinese Empire, nomadic tribes did interact with both and could have transferred culture that way. This time period is when Chinese and Greek culture came closest together, and artistic ideas were, of course, no exception. Here you can see a map of Asia at the time. This is an example of a Greek statue, and this is a more traditional Chinese statue, and you can see how the warrior is somewhat of a combination between the two. How are the terracotta warriors visually similar to Greek sculpture? The infantrymen do not resemble Greek sculpture in almost any way besides their life-size representation, but the few acrobats found in the tomb are much more comparable. The acrobats have anatomical elements that make them look more realistic, like their collarbones and the shape of their muscles. This style of realism was almost exclusive to Greek culture during this time period. Here is an example of a Greek bronze sculpture, as well as one of the acrobats found with the terracotta warriors. And you can see the similarity in the muscle depictions, as well as just more realistic proportions for this acrobat statue. These warriors overall are a showcase of ancient Chinese talent, wealth, political power, and even a potential showcase of relations between ancient China and ancient Greece. Each statue can be individually admired, but together they create a whole new monument, and the collection is truly one of the greatest artistic accomplishments within the ancient world. Here I have my references cited, and thank you so much for watching.